Welcome to BCB Live. Yes, we are that safest station in the nation. Welcome to BCB Live, the safest station in the nation. You are now joined with two good-looking folks and Drive Safe Dave representing the Do Not Pass sign.
And a better-looking folk. No, good stuff, man. Welcome to the show. I'm glad to have you here. This is going to be fun, right? This is how you do. Do you do a lot of TV? Do you do a lot of TV interviews?
No, this is the first for me. So I'm.
We got a rookie here.
Yeah.
And no prep either. I'm going to tell you, Zach walked in and said, "Hey, by the way, you're on the show today at 9 o'clock. Let's get ready."
Sure.
We get him mic'd up and we're ready to go. Zach with Optical Dynamics, OD. Zach, give us a description of, well, first of all, tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah.
Why you work and chose OD, because you could have gone anywhere. You know, if you're, hey, Daniel, if you're out there watching, he could have gone anywhere.
Yeah,
he chose OD, though. Why OD and what is OD?
Yeah. Well. Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here. And I'll tell you, I've been in supply chain all my life, and started my career at UPS way back in the day, like a lot of people, and was just introduced to just the enormity of like what's going on to move goods from point A to point B and all over the world. So I've had various roles in the industry that led me into the startup space a couple of years ago, and got introduced to Optical Dynamics. And really so Optical Dynamics is a software company based out of New York City, and we are applying advanced math that gives decision automation and intelligence to transportation companies that are operating fleets, and we are helping them make the best decision that they can to maximize their objectives and their drivers' objectives. Right. So this is a concerted effort between what the company's trying to do and what they're trying to do for the drivers and their owner operating partners, and we're helping them make daily decisions that take all of those needs into consideration and give the planner or the driver manager or the dispatcher the best decision that they can have in the moment, to help everybody's objective. Got it.
Hey, I am going to open this up. If there's a driver out there today that has a question, hey, put it in the comments. Bryce or Kayla, you can read the question off to Drive Safe Dave and I, and we'll make sure that we ask it the right way to Zach. Say, hey, this doesn't work. We'll make sure we make it sound good. Drive Safe.
So really, and I just want to ask. So really, what you are, and just so that we can get it straight, is you're that electronic chessboard that computer chessboard, right? That makes the best move at the time to win the ultimate game, right? Which is whether it's to make money and also get the driver home and also do everything in the correct way as best you can.
Yeah, and I would say that it's even harder than just looking at a chessboard, right? Because you're looking at a known world on a chessboard.
Absolutely.
When we're talking about making decisions in the real world in transportation, we all know that gets very, very messy. So this is not just about a software platform that you flip the switch on and this thing starts to make mathematical decisions on what the best decision is from a dollars and cents perspective or from a mileage perspective. There are a lot of people involved, and this is definitely a partnership between the application of advanced math and really the people that are running the operation, that know the drivers, that know the customers, that know your company, to really, again, distill down into what is the best decision to be made today for this load, right? And if you're talking about a carrier of any scale, that's hundreds or thousands of decisions a day that have an impact days, weeks down the road on the network.
Wow. So when your system's looking at it today in our world, we'll look at a truck and we'll match the truck up to what we, as a person, just feels like it's the right load. Oftentimes that decision's based on deadhead, the empty mile. Where's it going to? Is it getting back to Dallas? And then I can get him or her. Yeah, what does it do? And there's so many decisions that happen. That's our person. That's the human decision we have. You're taking all of the freight that we see in our system. you're bringing it back into your system. And you are, if I understand that right, running it, say, 20 times with all the trucks, all the freight, to make sure that it is optimizing maybe a driver to get him or her home, to perhaps make that company the most money, to get that driver the most miles. You're able to take all of that in your system and run that math?
Yes, absolutely. And it's many, many times for every single load, for every decision that we're making, we're actually building a probabilistic future and making the decision with that probabilistic future in mind. So if we think about, just let's take it into today and how we make decisions as humans, right? We take the information that we can absorb and make the best decision that we believe we need to make for whatever objective we're trying to go after. And typically there's human emotion that's involved in that. We tend to be more conservative because we want it to work. But let's face it, we all get our iPhones out to do simple math, right? Just to do simple arithmetic. We're all, even the smartest of us out there are grabbing a calculator or a phone to do simple math. And when we talk about what the incremental value is of a truck in the future and at a location and what that means to our network, there is a ton of math involved in that, right? So if we're talking about making a load allocation or a dispatching decision today, we're looking at what we know. Like, what do I know now, and how do I make this decision knowing that I've got to overlay some gut feeling that I know I'm going to be able to get this driver home. It tends to be a little bit more conservative because I just want to get them home. But in reality, there's a lot of options that ensure that driver to get home. And we can make the best decision, again, for the company and the driver to maximize their loaded miles, maximize their hours of service, maximize the company's objectives, so that everybody is really comfortable with the outcome.
In today's market, it's a struggle out there with freight, and you really do have to be optimized today to even stand a chance on making it to the next week, to the next day, through that month. From a sales perspective, I'm just curious, probably more interest today than, say, when the rates were $4 a mile?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's just different conversations and different focal points that people are having at the peaks and valleys of markets. But at the end of the day, we're all in existence to maximize what we're doing. And whether it's maximizing the loaded miles for a driver, their pay, what we're trying to do as an organization, whether the market's at the peak of the valley, the objective is still pretty much the same. Now there's the economics are different, but the objective's still the same.
So we had a driver really jump in really quick and just wanted to ask: does the team driver, as opposed to the team truck, is also taken into account as well as a solo truck, right? It figures at both of those, right? That it knows that truck can continue to run.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is going to the point of, this is definitely a marriage between the human element of the operation and the system. But yes, you guys will know very well, we really go down into the nth degree to make sure that the solution is taking into consideration everything that's happening in your network, right? All of your fleet types, your driver types, your customer requirements, what you can and can't do, what kind of trucks you're operating and what their missions are, what your permits are. And this is a constant, ebb and flow of what we're hearing from the field and how we're configuring the solution to make decisions. And again, this is not just 100% the solution is starting to make decisions, for the whole network, right? There are still cases where, we're making decisions and there is knowledge about the customer or something happened with an urgent situation with a driver that needed to be taken care of. All of those things are being, it's a happy marriage between what we can do to optimize, but taking into consideration that this is the real world and this is trucking, and there's a massive human element involved in this.
I'll tell you what, one of the few things that I've been most impressed with is the shared deal. It wasn't like optimal dynamics. Okay, this is what's going to happen. It's always been a shared decision. It's always been like both parties are working diligently to come to the same conclusion, and it's never taken out. You don't actually remove all of the human element ever because you can't, right?
Yeah.
And it's been, and I'll tell you, one of the things I like most is like, hey, these are some of the best values that you can do, but we also have these options as well. I really like the idea that it's not just narrowed down to one thing, but you create this area in which these are the most optimal, and these are the second to the most optimal. And I really like the idea that the choices are there to be made.
Yeah, and I think, so I guess the why us, why now story is, math has been around for a long time, right? Advanced math has been around for a long time,
Absolutely.
right? But really the ability to apply that and, the scope of a carrier's, even a smaller carrier's network, and the amount of decisions and the ramifications of each decision that can be made is almost infinite. So the really why us, why now is that only now do we have access to the mammoth amount of computing power that it takes to really distill all of those variables that need to be taken into consideration down to a single decision, and that single decision replicated many, many times over for every load that's out there and every driver that's out there. So we're really at in an amazing time in how we're applying this technology now that they have the ability to crunch this massive data, because historically and optimal dynamics is a product of over 35 years of research and development at Princeton University, and we've been in the optimization space for a long time, but historically it was an either or decision. Either you had to apply a lot of math and it would take a lot of time to solve. And by that time, at the load level, the load has already been accepted, rejected, or dispatched, and it's gone. Or you had to really elevate the simplicity of the problem and solve it, but it didn't take into consideration everything that needed to be taken into consideration, right? Delivery windows, customer service requirements,
Right.
A driver's hours of service, et cetera.
Yeah, and when you think about OD and optical dynamics, the data. Mm-hmm. The data is critical, and we had the question from the team, right, that asked that question. Well, here's things that optical dynamics can't do. I mean, it can't create 2,000-mile runs in the system. That comes from your customer service, your company. Still, we've got to be able to get that freight and book that freight in the system. And to a driver, if in fact you're limiting yourself to, say, 2 or 3 states, well, the more options you have, the more optimized that you can become as well to get those miles. And I just think this, I just feel that, if we're taking a load somewhere and we have more options, I think I should just feel less worried perhaps about getting home, because optical dynamics is going to look at my RDO, because you guys do touch that side. And even if I go to Atlanta, Georgia, RDO is OD is planning on me going to Atlanta to make sure that I still get home by that date. It's one of the parameters you're always looking at, but the data has to be good, clean, and pure.
Absolutely, and it's a fundamental requirement for us to make the decision is that we need, the system is looking at the data. It's being monitored by, us as people, but, we do have to have the right, correct, and timely data to be able to make the decision.
2 things. Number one, the idea of the ELDs, when they've come in and they've really created a better way for, to formulate the data, to grab the data and do something with it. And it's really helped over the last few years as opposed to prior to that, right? The data was raw. I had to actually input the data first. Now it's just fed in there automatically with the ELD. Location, time, pickup, it's all done. And
it's critical, right? Because when we're making a decision, it's not just about the load, right? It's about the driver and what their goals and needs are, right? So if they have a home time requirement, to be home on Friday by a certain time, and there's no wiggle room in there, they need to have confidence that you're going to be making decisions for them to be able to get there, right? And not only get there, but get there and make the money that they need to keep their operation running.
We had a question here, and it goes to the wait time.
Yeah.
From a driver saying, man, if it's being optimized, man, why do we have wait times? And I'll start that one by, first of all, understanding that Optidynamics, you can't prepare for delays, right? From a shipper, receiver, or timing like that. The other thing is too, that I'll just say from if I look at it from our perspective today, is what we do know is that we're short about 150 loads in our system. The more freight we get into the system, the more options it is for a driver to be optimized. Mm-hmm. This isn't the game we're in today says this right here. It's a driver, hey, open up your running lanes. We're going to get you home. We're going to pay attention to the events, because it's not humans doing it anymore. It's a computer that's running all these scenarios to make sure that we get you back to the house. the more freight we have, the more optimization we can have. Here's the deal, though, too. We always have to remember is that we still have customers. And a customer, once we take a load, David, if you give me a load and Optical Dynamics says, hey, Rick, take that load, or don't take the load, but I take it anyway, hey, guess what? OD is going to have to make a decision to pick that load up. And that decision could mean that you have to wait 4 or 5 hours because we went with that load, or perhaps it's the only option on that load. I will say this, and this is, to anybody out there that feels like you're having delays, hey, use that work count. Okay, I'm going to say that because what Optical Dynamics can't do is it can't prepare for like delays. But if we just accept and we don't send a work count on it as well or anything like that, we can't get that problem addressed. We want to make sure that we are going back to you and taking care of your pay even if you're waiting. But a lot of it comes from the communication too. David, I'm going to go to you on this one here because when drivers are getting dispatched, there is still, there's things that Optical Dynamics can't do. I can just push them out of the way for a second because there's still a lot of communication that has to happen between the driver and the dispatcher, that driver manager. Talk to the drivers about the importance of that communication that still exists in today's world with or without OD.
Yeah, as you know, Rick, and when the driver has to communicate directly about what trailer they're picking up. The condition of the trailer. There's things that happen on a minute's notice. The driver can be doing this pre-trip, walk around, and there's something wrong. And now I've got to go get that fixed before I can go out on a load. I mean, there are things that happen up to the minute, and things change. Guess what, Rick? Life sometimes just gets in the way. Sometimes you get a phone call, and you got to go home, right?
Sure.
Or sometimes things just bad happen. I mean, there are so many ways in which a driver has to go, wait, I got to go back to the human side of this. I get it, but something's come up, something's happened, and it happens every day. I mean, that's what we do every day. We deal in the real side, right, Rick? We deal in the human side of it.
Yes.
I deal in the virtual side of it. We deal with both sides of it. And the drivers have to understand the best way to deal with most of their issues is to communicate with them.
Yeah, and I think that the drivers are rock stars out there, and unfortunately, one of the most elastic components of a supply chain is transportation.
Absolutely.
So when we start to talk about delivery windows and dwell times and drivers being delayed, one of the things that we can try to do to help that is we will learn shipper facilities.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
That's
so,
great. I know that.
Yeah, so if we start to see a trend or a pattern happening, and one of the components that Optical Dynamics deploys is machine learning as part of the AI toolbox that we can actually learn what is happening at a facility. We can start to take that into consideration when we're making a decision, right? So that we know that if we are sending a driver to a location that potentially has a scenario where there could be dwell. One, to your point, I mean, it needs to be documented so that we can make everybody whole. But two, we're not going to be so aggressive on the follow-on load that it jeopardizes then that driver's ability to get onto the next load and stay loaded.
Or stressing them out, trying to figure out,
100%.
hey man, I got to get, if I don't get loaded, I got this next load I'm supposed to go get.
Absolutely.
And it becomes an issue. But that learning process also helps us, right, Rick, with the data to go back. Maybe that's not the best shipper in the world. We make those kinds of decisions.
Yeah, there's
every day.
no doubt about it, and it does. But it all goes back to making sure we're taking care of you, that driver. But understand, I know you get that. Y'all are in this game every single day. That delays are going to happen on that. It's how we react, though,
Yes,
is what's
100%.
important on that. And also, I also understand this, that we're usually, as managers, as drivers, as anybody, we're only as good as our last load. And the fact that maybe 6 or 7 of your other loads may have been perfect, this one here sucked. Let me tell you something. All I'm doing is waiting, drive safe, Dave, right? That's all I'm doing.
Or the last trailer I picked up was messed up. Every trailer I pick up is messed up, right? I mean, it is the nature of the beast. And it's like my wife does it all the time. She goes, it always happens to me. I'm like, always. But it is, I think it's human nature. And I think that's probably what we've been talking about. How do we interact the two? And I'll tell you what, I've really liked how OD's jumped in and helped bend, flex, and understand some of the human side of it, because it's very real.
Yeah, and communication is key. And when we start to look at decisions that were being made historically just by tribal knowledge and folks within the organization, To your point about a driver only wanting to operate in a certain area, there could be a very good reason and a very it is what it is reason. But it could just be that they were they had said, hey, look, I tend to only want to work in this area, and that response basically became ingrained in the operation of their company, and those were the only loads that were offered to them. Now we have a way of saying, look, we can expand the scope of that. Make sure that your objectives, meaning your home time or what you like or don't like to do, are honored while we're maximizing your hours of service and your loaded miles and your revenue potential, right? So we're really leaning into the feedback loop, and I can't stress this enough that it needs to be a feedback loop. It needs to be a feedback loop from the drivers to their driver managers, the driver managers to the planners to us, or the driver managers to us, so that we can make sure that the solution is looking at every decision and taking into consideration as much or all of the things that need to be taken into consideration.
Yeah, and let's face it, it's technology. It's not perfect, right? Nothing is. We always, and we can't expect to. Although here's the fact, and we talked about it. I talked to the drivers about this on Saturday. Is there's no ifs, ands, or buts. We've seen it, an increase of somewhere in that 450 to 525 miles a week. We had drivers say, man, I'm definitely getting them up there. As a whole, it's working, right? As a whole, it's doing what it can to increase that productivity. What we've got to continue to do, David, within our fleet is this. We are probably the most optimized fleet in the country 3 days a week.
We are.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. There's nobody better than us. There's nobody better than y'all. Y'all maximize your hours. And what I love about the maximization of hours, David, is the safety that goes with it. Yeah. There's no doubt about it that a safer driver is one that's optimized, that's running his or her hours out. We see it on your safety scores. It's amazing. Where we as a company have got to continue to get better, and I think it's an industry thing, is 4 days a week. And that's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Right. Those are the days that we've got to learn to take better freight, right? Freight that gets you out of the house Sunday night, Monday morning.
Early. Because
to get out Monday afternoon and be back home Friday, while it may kind of work for you, we also get that, and I know you understand it too, that, hey, we also have to make money. We got a truck payment to make. We got to pay bills. We got to do all this. We need you out there running safely your hours that you have. You have 70 hours in a week, Dave. Our job is to try to get as much out of that safely as we absolutely can. What Optical Dynamics has done for us is allowed us to kind of stretch out a little bit to get you planned on tours or on loads 3, 4, 5, 8 days out in advance. That's allowed us to be more successful, to focus on the exceptions, to make sure that we're honing in on that and making the company the most money. And guess what, Dave? When the company's making the most money it can, hey, so are you, the drivers. Absolutely. You are also making that money. Very important to us.
And one of the things that you said earlier, and I think it's when you said a driver has a smaller region, and I think historically drivers have gotten to the point where they believe that if I go out too far, I won't get back well enough.
Yep,
I can't, because it's happened to me too many times. I'm okay to go everywhere. Well, guess what everywhere usually means? I'm not home when I'm supposed to be home. Yeah. And because, well, we tried, that's trucking. Have you ever heard that term?
Oh,
well,
yes.
That's trucking. But really the idea is you get more choices, you get more options, we create a better circuit, and you get back in time. And that's the idea, right? You got to believe in the system for the system to bounce back and get you back.
Right, absolutely. And to Rick's point, it's not perfect, right?
Yeah.
We just have access to a lot more options because we have access to the data and can make a decision over a much broader, data set and window of, decision time frame, right? So we as humans are looking at the now, right? How can I get this driver on this load from this point A to point B, and I think I have a pretty good idea that going into this market, they're going to get out. Where there could be 50 options around that same decision that are better than just that one load that we were looking at. And the result of that, and again, the goal here is not to go from good to perfect, right? It's going from good to better, and good to better all around. Good to better for the drivers, good to better for the company, and your customers, et cetera. So, we're incrementally trying to move the ball forward, and we're not taking this leap from good to this perfect utopian world where everybody's loaded, everybody's maximizing their
No
loaded
wait
miles.
times.
No wait times, right? Yeah, so we understand that there's a very real reality into what we're doing.
Yeah, and and understanding that's why we're here to talk to you, to make sure that you always know that and you know this, that we're always going to try to find things to make it better for you. But here's the deal, and I know y'all know this, it was no different with Samsara when we spent months on Samsara going over, how we use it. We had a show around Samsara, for Christ's sake, but there's no certain key fob that we put in there and it works, right? It ain't like you just you buy this thing, they ship you a little thing, you throw it in, and the world is fixed. That doesn't happen because we are all humans. Our customers don't ship out like they say they were going to or are going to. You have things that come up, we have things that come up, but what makes this thing so perfect is how we work together in an imperfect world. But we're taking care of one another. You know that we're always going to do that here at the company. We appreciate what you're bringing to the company to help us improve to you who we are, to make sure that we are being safe, Dave, that we are communicating to you, and if we can, to be on time, because what we're not going to ever do out of here is make sure that is to ever come out and say that miles is more important than safety, because it's not. We speak to you, we talk about that, and that's not our culture at the company. What we do know is this: a more utilized driver, you out there being utilized, my God, are you so much safer out there, because it allows you to stay focused on what you need to stay focused on. Dave, as a former driver out there, how important is it for you to be optimized, to know that you're going to probably have a load, you're going to get back home, that you have a system that's designed to make sure that it gets you the miles and gets you home? Shouldn't that allow you to get better sleep out there on the road?
Not only get better sleep, but it's not just worrying when you're gripping the wheel and you're thinking something else in the back of your mind, when you should be paying attention to what's going on the road, right?
Yes.
So you should be looking at your mirrors. You should be, instead of trying to look at your phone or look at your messages or trying to figure out, did I get another load? Am I good to go home? And that way, if you trust in it and you can trust in it and it can trust in you and you work together well, you're going to be a much safer driver. You're going to be a much more relaxed driver. You're going to enjoy the ride. You're going to roll the window down a little bit. Well, maybe not when it's 107, but you're going to be able to roll out down the window a little bit and get a little bit of the fresh air and enjoy what you're doing, because that's what you love doing.
Hey, before we get out of here, we got a couple minutes. Let's talk a little supply chain bingo.
Yeah.
First of all, where did this idea even come from?
Yeah, so I'm so blessed to have two great kids. I've Max, who's 12, and my daughter Molly, who's 9. And like many families, we live in the South, and we go on a lot of road trips. And like most parents out there trying to keep their kids off the screens, we try to come up with different creative ways to keep the kids busy and occupied in the car. And this theme kept recurring about Dad, what do you do for a living? And what does this mean? What is that? And it got into a game that we were trying to say, hey, what kind of truck's that? What kind of trailer is that? What is that place? And it just kept going and kept going. And my wife Susie said, you guys should really make a game out of this. This is really interesting. And I started thinking about it. And Max is a great kid. He's dyslexic, and he's an advocate for dyslexia. And I said, and I thought, this is would be a great experience, one, to provide a platform for him to talk about himself and what he's going through, and then also just to get kids involved in what it means to go into a retailer and see a toy on a shelf and understand how that toy got there. Mm-hmm. So Max was involved actually in creating this game, but the game is meant to educate kids and everyone really, and I think a lot of adults will use it as well, on the different equipment types that move down the road in North America, and we'll be expanding this across the globe, hopefully in the near future. But I wanted to get Max involved in the process. So we actually designed the game. We had to hire an artist to do all the graphics that you're seeing. We had to work with a manufacturer. He had to understand the cost of manufacturing a game. We had to work with quality control. We had to understand what it meant to start a website. So he's been involved in the whole process, and you've met Max, and he's an awesome little kid. But it's been such a great joy for me to, and this is not a massive business, but it's been such a great joy for me to just have that connection with him. And not only have that connection, but bring him into my industry and have him understand what I do every day and who I work with.
Good stuff, man.
Yeah.
So check out Supply Chain Bingo. You know, I love it. We have fun with it here at live here at the studio. I also think it's cool, and maybe I should have stopped it too, to have 2 kids and 2 great kids. I got 4, and I got 2 great kids out of 4. I say there. You know, no names. I'm not mentioning names. I know my kids are like, all right, who is it? Who's the unchosen ones? You know who you are.
I have one, and she's my favorite.
All right, hey, y'all, we're going to take it back to local stations. Y'all have a great, safe day today. Make it happen. Stay safe. And situation awareness, Dave, we're not getting out of here today with talking about that. Situation awareness, knowing that what you're seeing right now is going to change in about 10 seconds. When you're around a place, when you're around traffic, Dave, sometimes you have to slow your speed down no matter what that sign says.
Yeah, I mean, that's the best case scenario that you can do out there on the road. Watch the space right in front of you. That's what you have to control. You can't control anything else other than what's right in front of you. That's what you're responsible for. Make sure that you do it every single day, all the time, because that's how you're going to get out.
That sign right there, is it a recommendation?
It is not a recommendation, it's the law. You cannot pass.
Do not pass when you see that sign. Follow the signs, y'all. Be good. God bless, and have a great one.
All righty.
Hey, it's Max from Supply Chain Bingo. Do your kids know what a dry van is, or a flatbed is, or an intermodal is? If not, they need Supply Chain Bingo. Order today. I'm signing all orders